So if you're struggling with anxiety, you may be experiencing different personality changes. You may notice you're not really the same person you used to be, almost the carefree self. One of the major personality changes that a lot of people experiencing anxiety feel is feelings of irritability or getting angered very quickly. You may notice that you snap at people a lot quicker, or you're just angry, and the amount of anger that you have almost kind of scares you. You know this isn't really you, and yet you get so upset so quickly. You get so irritated so quickly. Why is that happening? And then what ends up actually happening is that you often feel bad that you did that and start feeling guilty. What I want to talk about in this video is how it's actually one of the most common things anxiety sufferers experience, and really breaking down why do you experience this, so that if you can understand why this is happening, you can really focus on how this is actually part of the recovery journey. And if you just do a few steps correctly, this can all go away. So pay attention. So when you're experiencing anxiety, you may be experiencing panic attacks, feelings of unreality, what we call derealization, depersonalization, physical symptoms, and the list of physical symptoms are literally endless. You can experience everything: dizziness, nausea, vertigo, tingling sensations, the headband sensation, headaches. I mean, it's an encyclopedia. And you also experience different emotions. Now, not a lot of people talk about these emotions. You may get feelings of sadness, but one of the most common things people experience, it was definitely something I experienced, but I actually didn't know how common this was until I was really helping other people. And when I was helping other people, I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, okay, certain symptoms I knew everybody experienced, but there was a few that I always felt was very unique to me. One was being agitated, being angered very quickly. And what I found as I helped people overcome that, it was actually one of the most common things people experience. So you may be experiencing anxiety, and then all of a sudden, small things, mundane things, what all of a sudden irritate you, frustrate you, and you snap. And you kind of look at yourself and you're kind of like, why did I do that? Am I always gonna be this way? Am I always gonna be angry? You know, you may have children and you may snap at them, and then you start feeling like you're a bad parent. Well, what's really happening? Are you a bad person? Are you just somebody who gets easily angered? The answer is actually no. What's happening is that it's actually an offset of anxiety, much like the physical symptoms, much like the intrusive thoughts, much like the feelings of unreality. This is also another side effect or symptom of anxiety. And here's how it works. So when you are experiencing anxiety, your nervous system is sensitized. So you have a baseline, right? Everybody has their own baseline, and their nervous system is able to handle certain stressors. Now what happens is that when people fall into the anxiety trap, they can fall into this because of whatever stress outside. A lot of times people fall in by having a panic attack, and then that kind of starts the loop. What happens is that their nervous system becomes sensitive. Small things will aggravate it. Small things will irritate it very quickly. Small things that normally everybody else would react to just fine, because your nervous system is sensitized, it's sensitive, your nervous system kind of goes haywire. It kind of responds in an exaggerated manner. And what we call that response is the fight or flight response. It's almost like a response that's used to protect yourself from threats. Now, prehistorically, these threats were external, which was, lions, snakes, tribal warfare, whatever it was, things to protect you. So why am I bringing this up? Well, when people are experiencing anxiety, the nervous system is sensitized. And one of the offsets of having a sensitized nervous system is that you get agitated very quickly. You get irritated very quickly. Think about it. If your nervous system is constantly stressed and you experience just a little bit of irritation, your body's gonna respond in an over-exaggerated manner. Think about it this way. Imagine you worked 10 hours on a very hard project, and work was really troublesome, and there was a lot of issues and a lot of stressors, and you're kind of depleted, you're exhausted. And then all of a sudden, you come home and, the kids do something, or the spouse says something, or your friends say something that normally you'd be able to brush off, but because you've worked so long and you're so tired, you kind of respond in an agitated manner or an irritated manner. Now, for normal people, that makes sense, right? They can look back in their past and say, well, I've been working this much and I've had these things on my mind, that's why that's happening. But with somebody that's sensitized, they're experiencing the same thing. But the reason why they're not experiencing it is because there's no real cause for the nervous system is being sensitized. The nervous system is just sensitized. That's just how anxiety is. So what's happening is that there's no real work stress, but they're still responding in this stressed out manner. So if that makes sense, what's really happening is that your nervous system is just irritated. So small things will aggravate it. That includes things that other people do, things that don't really annoy you, but all of a sudden annoy you. And so one of the things to understand when you're dealing with anxiety, besides having these intrusive thoughts, besides having these physical symptoms, these feelings of unreality, is that you may notice some personality changes. And it's very easy to think that this personality change is going to be you forever. You're never going to come out of this, or this is you now, and you just want to go back to your old self. Just like you experience the physical symptoms, the intrusive thoughts, the feelings of unreality, the personality changes are also temporary. Once your nervous system desensitizes, the personality changes also kind of come back. You go back to your old self. Now the truth is that the old self comes back in layers. It doesn't come back overnight, it takes some time. And so even the personality changes, including getting irritated by small things, that also kind of goes away. Imagine not having to work 8-10 hours or being stressed out. You wouldn't get irritated by small things. And so much like that, when your nervous system desensitizes, you won't get irritated the same way. Now, to understand more about how anxiety really works, understanding what kind of emotions come about with anxiety, what kind of physical symptoms, what kind of intrusive thoughts, it's really important to understand the mechanics of anxiety. Most people are stuck in the cycle because they just don't know how anxiety works. Anxiety works in a very counterintuitive approach. And most people that are approaching anxiety are responding in a very intuitive manner. But anxiety doesn't really work that way. It kind of works in like a whole different universe. It has its own separate laws that you really have to understand. And if you could understand these principles, what you can do naturally is you'll understand what's happening and more importantly, how to get out. And so if you really want to know, how do you overcome these physical symptoms, these intrusive thoughts, these feelings of unreality, these emotions that I'm talking about, what I'll do is I'll put a link down below. This is a link. Essentially what I've done is I've written out how to overcome this. This isn't a quick fix. This isn't a coping trick. This isn't a breathing exercise. This isn't any of those things. It's really helping you understand what's happening and more importantly, what to focus on to overcome this. Not cope with this, not manage, but to get this problem fixed. You only have to cope if the problem's still there. But if the problem is gone, there's no reason to cope. You've overcome it. And so what I've written out is I've shown you step by step how to overcome this. Now here's the great part. That report is absolutely free. I don't charge anybody. The people that I help guide step by step to recovery, these are the exact steps I give them that I give to you. The reason why I'm giving this to you is because, look, I've gone through the recovery journey too. It was tough. I had to figure it out all on my own. I didn't get much insight. I didn't get much guidance. I had a few books that I kind of had to figure out, but most of it was really on my own. And if some people would have just explained a few things to me, people that had really understood what was happening, it would have made my life so much easier. So just because I'm not working with you doesn't mean that I shouldn't be still giving you value. These videos are very valuable, but I also want to write it out for you too, so that you can reread it, really understand what I'm talking about so you can focus on freedom. So the link is down below, check it out. So now that you understand that it's part of the normal anxiety recovery journey, that you may experience irritation, agitation. Well, how do you deal with that? How do you fix that? Here's the key, okay? Much like anxiety, where you feel like if you feel the anxiety, you need to respond in fear, right? That's the common idea of how anxiety works. In the same way, that same principle is being applied to anger. So you feel anger, so you feel like you let it out. Now here's the truth, that never works. This is also why anxiety is very counterintuitive, and it's very similar to anger. The idea is, how do you go about making sure that this goes away long term? Well, one of the things to understand is just because you feel anger doesn't mean you respond in anger. It's totally fine to feel however you want. If you feel angry, that's totally fine. Responding in anger, though, is fully within your control. Now, if you look at anger, it's much like anxiety. What that means is that if you feel the anxiety, if you respond in fear, you'll feel better, right? Naturally, if you feel anxiety, why wouldn't you respond in fear? It's a natural reaction. But here's what happens. Your fear actually magnifies. It never makes it better. Anger is the same way. So if you feel angry, if you feel like you need to let it out, that never works. That only escalates. It only makes things worse. So here's how you really focus on it. You feel the anxiety, you feel the anger, but then you just allow it to be there. You don't have to respond, you don't have to react. I would say respond, don't react. Respond consciously. Now that's very hard in the moment. In the moment it doesn't help. In the moment you're still pretty upset, you're still pretty angry. But long term what it does is that it still gives your nervous system a chance to rest. Believe it or not, your nervous system is agitated because you're responding in anger, because you're responding in fear. And if you really take a deep look at your own recovery journey, you'll notice that never helps. It never helps. I would go as far as to say it even escalates things. So feel the anxiety, feel the anger, but don't respond in anger. Feel it, don't deny it, but don't react to that. The last thing I'm gonna say is this. When you feel the anger, and if you respond in anger, a lot of times I find people struggling with anxiety start talking badly about themselves. They talk about how they're a bad person and they feel guilty. This is all useless and it's pointless. And it actually causes you to sabotage your own recovery, and it's not even helpful to your recovery. So one of the things is that when you have done it, accept that you've done it and move forward and focus on not doing it in the future and try to get better about responding better. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is really just doing it the best you can. So anyways, I hope this video helps. If you really want to know more, if you really wanted to see more success stories, if you really want to know more content on how to overcome this, I'll put a link down below to my private Facebook group. In this group, I'm personally helping people fully overcome. The group has grown so much now that the people that I've helped overcome are now helping other members too. This is a community unlike anything out there. I haven't seen any community like this. So it's a free Facebook group. I have more exclusive content on there that I'm not posting on any other social media platform. So if you really want to know how to overcome anxiety, how to overcome this once and for all, put a link down below. When you hit the link, it's going to ask you 3 specific questions. It's very important you answer these questions to the best of your ability. We want people in the group, but we're also trying to maintain the integrity of the group. If you've been on forums, you've seen how much fear-mongering there is, how much toxicity there is. This is not the place for that. This isn't a place to cope. This isn't a place to manage or to vent. This is really focused on people that are serious about overcoming and getting their lives back and letting go of this idea of anxiety and just going on a living without this identity of anxiety. So if that's you, hit the link down below and I'll see you inside.